this. Okay. I also could probably upload the deck or a link to the deck on the website link for that class too, like where I put the video. Would that be helpful too, Mel?
Sure. Yeah.
Or what can I do? Yeah. I feel like I need to like figure out what's the best protocol for putting places. I feel like I'm putting stuff like in a bunch of different places because people are used to certain places, and I need to make it more efficient for everybody.
Yeah, I was just asking only because I know people may want to go to certain class on certain days, and I know you're offering a lot, so I didn't want to be like, like, what's going on today, tomorrow? Like a way we could just access that information.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So this section that everybody did for homework we did it untimed, except some people did, I know that have worked with me before, did do it timed and kind of did it the way that we normally do it. But for those that didn't, for our future sections, I just want to go over how I recommend doing time sections. So most of us, if you're anything like me, we struggle to finish an LR section. Is that anybody else? You figure like in the 35 minutes, it's hard to get through all of it.
Yes.
So how I recommend doing time sections is for every about 3 time sections you do, you should do 1 untimed. So if you do 4 LR sections a week, you should do 3 timed, 1 untimed. But the 3 that you're doing timed, go ahead and set a timer for 35 minutes. And as you go, if you are unsure of an answer or if one took you a really long time, go ahead and flag those questions. And then once you run out of time, finish the section untimed. So if you only get to question 17, finish 18 through 25 or 18 through 26 completely untimed. If it takes you another 35 minutes, that's totally okay. And the reason that we do that is because we have to get, those are typically the tougher questions of the section, and it's better to do those untimed and unrushed and try to get them right than at the end of a section spending 30 seconds on them and wasting questions. Because I know there's some people that have done almost every single test or every single section. And then once you finish that, attempt all the questions you flagged again. So if you flagged 4 or 5 questions in the 18 that you did at the beginning, go ahead and try those again in the untimed scenario, just to give yourself the opportunity to try to figure them out. Like if you had 5 or 6 minutes on that question, would you be able to get it right? It's okay to review it. And sometimes you might have flagged a question and you review it and you're like, oh no, I'm going to stick with my answer. That's totally fine. Then you grade the section, attempt all the questions you missed again. And then this is the most important part of the whole thing. For every single question you flagged, even if you got it right, and every single question you missed, review with external sources. So whether that is Manhattan Prep, LSAT explanations, if you have 7-stage or LSAT Demon, watch the videos or read the answer choices, because that's how, even if you got it right, there's a reason you flagged it or it took you a really long time. And that's how we're going to get faster for the future, is by crossing off wrong answer choices. And also for the ones that you missed, even if the other question, you're like how many people, probably the number one mistake I see from students is they narrow it down to 2. And when they go back to review, they're like, oh, well, it was just the other answer. I got this. And they don't spend very much more time on that. I was guilty of this for a long time when I was studying. Does anybody know why that's dangerous?
You don't actually learn from your mistakes.
Yes, you don't actually learn from your mistakes. There's questions that I would even get right and I would still ask questions about, because if I didn't know why I got it right, I could have just got lucky. And so for those of us that are varying, especially if we're in that above 160 range and we don't understand like why sometimes we get a -3 and sometimes we get a -10, oftentimes it's because we just get lucky on when we narrow it down to 2, certain days we get luckier at guessing the right one between the 2. And so that's where that becomes so important. And then I did not do this. I'm going to be honest. I did not do this when I was studying, but I have seen it be beneficial. Does anybody have a missed question journal? Zach, I know you keep track of a lot of that stuff. Does anybody else use one?
Yes. I have like an Excel sheet
Excel sheet. Okay. I'm not a big believer in spending a ton of time on this, but I do think there's value in just writing down what question types you're missing and why you missed it. Was it a misread? Did you not understand the stimulus? Did you misread what question type it was? Did you pick an answer choice that was too strong, too weak? Like just to kind of make note so that we can figure out if there's any patterns in what you're missing. I'm not like, I think some people like hand out like whole sheets of stuff and they have to review, like pretty much like write a paragraph for each question they miss. I'm not a big believer in that. I don't know if anybody currently does that. Do we have, like, I don't want to like crush all your dreams. Who does that?
Sorry, I have a question. How do you recommend review? Like, just read why we got it wrong using the external sources? Should we write anything down?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I would love external feedback, like more feedback here as well. So this is going to look different as you continue to study, but I can send some links out as well. So does anybody currently use, how many people have LSAT Demon or 7 Sage? Does anybody have those resources? Some of you do. So for those that have it, this is what I would use those resources for what I'm describing. For those that do not, I just used, before I had LSAT Demon, I just used LSAT Hacks in Manhattan Prep. And so what I would do is I would go to their website and go to whatever section it was that I did and go to the question. And I would understand see, did I find the right conclusion? Did I understand the reasoning? And then for the answer choices, I would really pay attention to why the wrong answer choices were wrong and made sure that why the wrong answer choices are wrong, especially why my answer choice was wrong. And could I actually see that? And then why the correct answer choice was correct. Hopefully for about 50 to 60% that you miss by doing this, you have a pretty good idea. For the ones that you completely don't, like you still don't know, which still is going to happen, those are the ones that you can bring to class or whenever we do our section reviews. So like tomorrow we're doing practice test 44, section 1, come to those to review the more difficult questions as well. Does that make sense? And so some of the things that we do in class, even whenever we go over a question and some of the questions I ask, and so like when we get into some of the questions for today, people will miss them. You'll pick up on some of the things like you should be asking yourself when you miss a question and you'll see that in a second when we get to it. Does anybody else review differently or have better tips for reviewing wrong answer choices? Or what?
I think that if you have like LSAT Demon, like drilling specific question types, because like I've noticed that I've gotten stronger at like specific, it's kind of like to use a metaphor, like a raft taking on water. You know, you plug in one hole, but then another one just like starts leaking again because like you start losing focus on it. Like I get better at must be true, so then my strengthens get worse, so then I get better at strengthens, and then my flaws get worse. So it's kind of like
you're right, because that literally happened to her.
You have to do like specific. That's why for like LSAT Demon's good because you can filter it and it gets harder over time when you get better.
No, I think I agree with you that LSAT Demon is great for drilling, but what about when we actually, so like just a one layer deeper, what actually happens when we miss a question? How do we get the most out of it? So for those of you that are new to studying, I didn't put this in my notes and this was actually on my list for next class, just like kind of like, I want to get more specific each class because I don't want to overwhelm everybody with things that we can do. But one of them is if you're missing like 15 plus questions per section, the first thing you want to pay attention to is why your answer choice is wrong. That should be your main goal when you're reviewing a section, why your answer choice is wrong. And then once you get down to like -10, your main question should be why is your answer choice wrong and why is the correct answer choice right? And then phase 3 is being able to quickly explain why every single wrong answer choice is wrong. Now, all of these are extremely important, but I think by breaking it up, because like I think sometimes we get overwhelmed with blind review because there's so much. And so we can have small goals of, oh, today I'm just going to focus on why my answer choices are wrong. That helps. Mel, do you have a question? Or are you distracted?
Yeah, I was going to say something. I was gonna say something. Can you? Your network is. Oh, sorry, my network is kind of low. Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you sound great.
Okay. What I was gonna say was just to piggyback what Zachary was talking about. Far as like what we could do for me, I don't know about anybody else in the group, but like I'm such a visual learner. So like when I get an answer wrong, like I like to watch visual representation of like why I got the answer wrong. Kind of like to go back or why I even got the answer right, because that's like another thing too, like that happens on Demon when you're drilling. Like there's a video explanation that pops up, like if you got it right or wrong, to like just to tell you, like, you know, because just I got it right don't mean I wasn't guessing, you know, like so, you know, just to like
every
hear
single question you flagged, even if you got correct,
yeah.
huge points.
Yeah, so for me, what helps kind of like reiterates my thinking is watching someone explain it. And then like the way they explain it, I'm thinking like the same thing, you know? So it's like, okay, well, I'm on the same track because I know if he's thinking this way, then my thinking must have been correct, you know, to stop me from feeling like I'm guessing, but I'm really attaining the information and I'm really understanding the question type. I think that's super important. So that's kind of what helps me by watching visual representation of the correct answers and the wrong answers. So I know I'm not guessing and I'm making deliberate choices.
I totally agree. I think that sometimes, I think people are surprised, but sometimes the best students are the people that take it most seriously. Even students that are scoring 165 plus will spend 20 minutes reviewing one question, even an easy question that they got correct, which is, it sounds crazy, but that's where like the level of detail comes in, where it's not, this thing isn't easy. I think we all can agree on that. And sometimes you get more out of reviewing fewer questions than, you know, just checking your to-do list for the day. Like, oh, I reviewed my 15 questions, so I'm done. And then on the opposite end of that, so that's like individual blind review. The other thing that we're going to talk more about in next week is the importance of studying with a partner or a small group. Cora and Derek can speak to this a little bit in this group. Oftentimes students that I work with, I try to pair up with a person or two other people that are either they just jive really well personality wise, they're at the same level, or they have different strengths. And the way that you review in this situation is, say you each do a time section separately and you come together. For the questions you miss, being able to explain the stimulus to your partner, which we do this in class some, and then going through the answer choices and debating the answer choices together. Because if you have different answers and you both think you're right, one, this helps us work on our confidence. And two, it's really important to hear someone else's point of view. And so those are like the two ways that I really recommend reviewing the LSAT, especially for extroverts. Extroverts and working with a partner is like, that tends to be a way that helps us stay focused. Any more questions on that? All right, perfect. Okay, so quickly to review, must be true versus most strongly supported. Who remember, what is a must be true or most strongly supported question? Who remembers something about them?
Information from the passage.
Yes, information from the passage. So is this a top down or bottom up question?
Top down.
Top down, yes. And so what does that mean? Let's go with Jasmine. What does it mean to be a top down question?
It has to stay within the lines of the stimulus. It cannot add any additional information.
Excellent. It has to stay within the lines. Okay. And do we tend to want something that is mild or strongly worded?
Mild.
Mild. Yes. And who wants to explain? And Jenny, why do we want something mild? Are you there? Can you hear us, Jemmy?
Might be on mute.
I think you're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, so you'd want something which is typically mild because that's the type of answers which typically come with must be true or most strongly supported.
Yeah, because what are we trying to do with, what is the goal of a must be true or most strongly supported question?
It has to be proven.
It has to be proven. And is it easier to prove something that's mild or prove something that's really strong?
Mild.
Mild, yeah, definitely.
I know
No,
it,
because you're saying at least one.
but I constantly go over this with like I want us to constantly go over the question types because it's one thing to memorize it, but it's another thing to actually understand why we want a mild answer choice. So that if we get to the question, if we get on the test and maybe we get a question that's worded a little bit differently, we can think through for ourselves, okay, this is what our goal is. So we probably want a mild answer choice because it is a top-down question or vice versa.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense.
So
Can I say something, Nicole,
no.
real quick? Oh.
I was mean to you on Saturday too with your question. I can't do that to you twice.
Oh, you're so mean to me. I no, seriously, I was going to say with the must be true questions, isn't it sometimes possible that the questions won't be milder sometimes if it relates to the stimulus?
It won't be valid? I'm sorry, what did you say? It won't be
isn't it sometimes possible that the answer choice won't be mild sometimes if it relates directly to the stimulus?
Why wouldn't it be mild? You're absolutely right. And why wouldn't it be?
If the verbiage in the stimulus is strong.
Yes, it can. So the answer choice can be as strong as the stimulus or more mild. So if we say all cows are green, then we can pick an answer choice that says all cows are green. But some cows are green would work as well. All right. So this was a question from one of the three sections we've done so far for class. That is a must be true just to review. So everyone go ahead and do this one silently and put the answer in the chat.
Wait, how do we see the,
Sorry, am I on it? Is there, oh, there we go. Have you not been seeing my video the whole time?
No, we're good.
Okay, I'm sorry. There you go.
This wasn't the homework, right? I just spent like 5 minutes right before to.
Yep, if you already have it, put it. This is one that was just in the homework.
Yeah, I got this wrong, so I remember the answer.
Yep, so if you put the answer, just go ahead and put it in the chat.
I'll put it at last because I don't want anybody else to get the.
Oh, you think you have it right?
Yeah, I don't even remember what I put.
No, so I pulled out, as we go, I'm going to pull out questions that we've done in the homework as we cover those question types.
Well, I did not put A, so I got this question wrong.
All right, we'll give 30 more seconds. Everyone's just gonna put everyone can just submit A since it's like such a.
I went with D, just what I put.
You're good. All right, Cora, can you read the stimulus for us? And will you translate it as you go? So will you sit on a sentence for us and translate as you go? Oh, you're on mute too.
I forgot I was on mute. Okay. Trust, which cannot be sustained in the absence of mutual respect, is essential to any long-lasting relationship, personal or professional. So what that means is that to have any kind of relationship, that could be a friendship, a coworker, boyfriend, girlfriend, domestic partner, anything like that, you have to have trust.
Mm-hmm.
However, so this is now introducing a different, where the author could be going maybe different with it. Personal relationships such as a marriage or friendship additionally require natural affinity. So this is now saying that separate from a business relationship or separate from your coworkers, if you actually have a true relationship, personal relationship or marriage, there has to be something additional than trust, and that is the affinity. Next, okay, if a personal relationship is to endure, it must be supported by the twin pillars of mutual respect and affinity. So this is going into a personal relationship, which can be a friendship, a marriage, any kind of relationship other than a coworker. If it's going to last for a very long time, that time, you know, we're only assuming time. We're not saying it's going to be 100 years. It must be supported by mutual respect and affinity. So going with that, if the statements above are true, which from the following must be true. So we know that we need to take something that has to be in our statement from above. We're not adding to it.
In any way.
Say it again.
In any way, we're not adding in any way.
Yes. All right, so I'm going to skip A and let's go.
Actually, let's go ahead and have, great job, Cora.
Okay.
Let's have Kamani. Is it Kamani, right? Kamani, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to call out some people. So Kamani, go ahead and in a second, tell us why E is wrong. Is it Eder or Eater? Oh, you're on mute as well.
Hi, what was that? I'm sorry.
How do you pronounce your name? I'm sorry.
Eder.
Eder. Okay, so I'm gonna have you in a second tell us why D is the incorrect answer. Carolina, you're gonna do C. And Mel, you're going to do B. All right. So let's start with who had E.
Me. I just felt like it sounded kind of extreme, as marriage natural affinity will ensure that it will endure. Like, it's just kind of, it just sounded extreme to me, so I just eliminated it. Kind of
extreme. You're meaning strong, correct?
Yeah, strong. Yes, very strong.
A marriage on a natural affinity will ensure that your marriage will endure. Can we support that from our passage? No. So excellent. All right, who had D? Go ahead.
And on D, even though it's not, it doesn't have a strong wording. It's implied that it's strong. I would eliminate that one. I don't know how to explain it.
Any support that personal relationships are longer lasting than professional relationships?
There's no support for that.
There's no support. Excellent. All right, go ahead with C.
So I had C. Clearly I got it wrong, but seeing it again, I think I got it wrong because it says it will last a long time, and the stimulus says it must be, or actually, where did I see that? I think option C is too strong. I think because it says the relationship will last a long time, it doesn't guarantee the relationship will last a long time with respect and affinity.
Just because we have mutual respect and affinity, like I said, doesn't guarantee that it will last a long time. Excellent. And then who had B?
I think I did. I didn't choose B because of the whole presupposes trust thing. Mutual respect presupposes trust. It kind of like threw me off. So I was like they flipped it or something.
On the LSAT, what does presupposes mean? You see this word a lot.
Assume.
Yeah.
Assumes, yes.
Yeah. Mutual respect assumes trust, so we know that's not true.
Yeah, does mutual respect come or come before trust? Do you
come
need
before?
Come before
yeah,
trust?
No.
Not necessarily. All right, and then Derek, why is A correct?
Well,
it actually is kind of strong.
It is. So, according to the last sentence, if a personal relationship is to endure, it must be supported by the twin pillars of mutual respect and affinity. So in this case, a friendship supported solely by trust and mutual respect will not be long lasting. Like you said, in C, how can we guarantee that something, just because it has trust and respect, is going to guarantee that? We can't make that guarantee. If not, divorce rates would be down in this country.
So it's saying a friendship that only has trust and mutual respect will not be long lasting, and it won't be long lasting because why?
Because the
It
friendship
doesn't have the affinity.
Yes,
that one.
we need affinity. Excellent. Does everybody see that? Fabulous. All right. And so for those of us that are like, we got these questions right and we feel like these are quick, what we can spend our time doing here now is look at the wrong answer choices and figure out how we can eliminate the wrong answer choices quicker. So if you got this one right, the next step is how do I get faster? But if we didn't get this one correct, it's why is my answer choice wrong? All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and read 22. So this was another one from the last one of the 3 sections that we did. This one's a little bit more challenging. When uncontrollable factors such as lack of rain cause farmers' wheat crops to fail, fertilizer and seed dealers, as well as truckers and mechanics lose business. I love when a sentence is 5 sentences long. And fuel suppliers are unable to sell enough diesel fuel to make a profit. Okay, so I did not grasp all that when I read it the first time.
Yeah,
So
that's ridiculous.
Whenever we have uncontrollable factors like not getting enough rain, this can cause the farmers' crops to fail, which in turn, fertilizers and seed dealers, as well as truckers and mechanics lose business, probably because the farmers' crops failed and they need their crops to succeed for them to provide them this business. And fuel suppliers are unable to sell enough diesel fuel to make a profit. And so the fuel suppliers that are selling it to the truckers and mechanics and etc. are not making a profit because they're not selling the diesel fuel that they normally would. All right, so everyone go ahead and put their answer to this one in the chat. All right, so it looks like we have E, C, and B as answer choices. Okay, so let's narrow A off really quickly. If several of the businesses that sell to farmers do not prosper, it is because farming itself is not prospering. Why is this one incorrect? Phoebe.
It reverses the relationship. So when farmers are suffering, other businesses suffer, but it doesn't guarantee that the other businesses suffer when farmers suffer.
Maybe these are suffering because we had an oil trade deal that went sour, but the farming itself is thriving. Who knows, right? There could be many reasons that the other businesses are suffering. And then D, a country's dependence on agriculture can lead to major economic crises. Why is that incorrect, Derek?
The word countries.
Countries? Is that what you
We don't
said?
know anything about countries. We're just talking about like a specific scenario. Maybe it's like within a country.
Country's dependence on agriculture can lead to.
And the economic crises too. I mean, what economic crisis? We didn't talk about that in the stimulus.
I think that's out of scope.
Yeah, because just because these fuel suppliers are unable to make a profit, does that necessarily mean that it's an economic crisis? Crises? What is an economic crisis?
Employment.
Pandemic.
Yeah.
5%. I don't know.
Yeah. Do we see that? How we don't know what an economic
It's
crisis
just one sector of the population. Maybe it's just like doesn't mean it's a whole economic crisis. I feel like it's a whole like society. This is just farming.
Yeah, I mean they can get a bailout.
They can get a bail. Maybe. Okay, so now we're between B, C, and E.
I'm the only one that put C. Should I just say why I put it, or?
Yeah, tell us, why is C wrong?
Oh, I guess I am wrong. So, I thought it was right because like farmers aren't responsible for the consequences, because in this case we see like the consequences of lack of rain or the failure of the crops. So like they're not responsible for that. Has been affected by lack of rain. So like uncontrollable factors such as lack of rain. I just line that up with that last sentence.
So I do think that C is the most tempting wrong answer. Katie, what did Zach do to his answer though?
I'm not, I mean, I just immediately like wrote off C because it didn't seem to be relevant and follow logically from the information. Like it was correct, but I didn't think that it like synthesized and contributed to it.
You applied the stimulus, Zach. So common sense would say that C is correct. Would everybody, if we read this in everyday world, would we all agree that C is correct? Would be like, oh, it's not the farmer's fault. That makes sense. But in LSAT world, we don't get to make that jump. Maybe they should have known that there was going to be a lack of rain and not maybe planted their wheat. That's not fair.
Maybe if this was like question 1.
But can we go to E? Because I want to know, how does a lack of rain constitute a drought?
Okay, but yes, we're going to go to E. Let's talk. Who picked B?
I picked B.
Okay, do you like B still?
I do too.
Okay.
I still like B.
I think it's wrong now that I'm looking at it, because I don't think the businesses necessarily or will profit from like, I think that's an assumption, like, and then they tend to lose money. I don't know. I just think it's a jump like C.
Is there a difference between making a profit and losing money?
Yes. Now, when I went back and reviewed it, that's where I switched it up.
Okay.
And that's really critical. That's why this is question number 22. There's some hard answer choices here, and that's a minor detail. But if we're unable to make a profit, just not being able to make a profit doesn't necessarily mean that I'm losing money.
But we could be breaking even.
Yes, we could be breaking even. Excellent. And who got E? Who got it correct with E and wants to share why? Taylor, did you get it? Taylor Thomas?
Yes, I did. I will say, when I was initially going through the questions, I thought B was tempting, but then when I went back, I see why E is correct, because it shows that, okay, the consequences of this lack of rain shows that, okay, it doesn't only just affect the farmers failing wheat crops, it kind of expands. Like, because the wheat crops failed, then the businesses don't get money, the fuel suppliers can't sell enough fuel, so it kind of has a ripple effect.
Excellent. Do we see here how when in doubt, go mild really works in our favor?
I thought lack of rain like doesn't drought. I thought.
Me too.
So that's why I didn't pick that.
Okay, so even if there is a lack of rain, I think that it is okay to, like, I feel bad saying this, but okay to assume that what if this was such as a drought was here? Do you think all of these things would happen, the same things would happen, just even more extreme?
Yeah.
So I think it's okay to make that assumption. But I agree with you that lack of rain does not necessarily mean drought. However, if it was a drought, all of the side effects would just be more extreme, because there would just be less rain.
Okay.
Fair.
And I also think that drought could definitely fall in the realm of an uncontrollable factor. Like that, I think, is still a solid example.
Yes. That's a really good point, Katie.
That better explains it to me. Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome.
Okay. Did everybody get the sheet in the email, or would everybody like me to email it or send it in the chat right now?
Can you put it in the chat, please?
Yeah. While it's loading there, so what's the difference between a most strongly supported question and a must be true question? Victoria, do you know?
I think must be true questions have to follow like what's stated, whereas most strongly supported are like kind of like inferences, what's implied.
Close. Who remembers, what does infer mean on the LSAT?
Conclude.
Conclude. Memorize this. I'm not a big believer of memorizing a bunch of words, but this is one to memorize. To infer means to conclude, which goes a little bit against what you said, Victoria, but I do think what you said works, but I think it's good to make sure that we understand that infer means conclude.
Okay.
What must be true is 100% supported from the stimulus, correct? We have our stimulus, our question, our 5 answer choices. It's 100%. Must be true is pretty much the same, except it's more like a 95% likelihood. I approach these questions exactly the same, and I've never had an issue. However, some people that are extremely critical, which is a good thing, can notice a difference between the 2 answer choices. I personally don't really notice it. Does anybody else notice the difference between the 2? Or if you approach them the same way, do you have the same level of success?
I think it's easier just to approach them the same way.
I agree.
What's the difference between like a most strongly supported and then like using like the framework of a stimulus and saying like applying a principle to it, like this principle, like what does this principle pretty much mean? It's like those types of questions. Like it'll give you like a situation where like it is morally good to do this, and it'll say like
which of these examples
yeah, like follows this.
Okay,
like
we'll get to those. Yes, that would be, I agree. I call those most strongly supported as well. But we will cover some of those. Okay, so does everybody have the boot camp class questions? In the document that I sent?
I don't, because I just joined today.
Oh, no, you're okay. Do you see it in the chat?
No. Did you send it?
Yes, I sent it in the chat. Did other people see it in the chat? Okay, so let's go ahead and take 8 minutes to do these 4 questions on our own. And these are all most strongly supported questions that you've done on your homework. Let me know if you don't have them though. All right, and once you're done, put the answers in the chat.
don't want us to do 40?
Did I put, oh, actually, yeah, do 42. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Nicole, where is this other sheet at? Is which one is the first bootcamp class sheet? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, you're okay.
The first one.
If you scroll down.
In the chat?
I just sent it again.
Okay, great.
If you scroll down, there's 3 main conclusion questions. Do the 3 main conclusion questions.
I got it. Thank you.
Yep, 16, 17, and 40.
Okay.
Do you all feel like you're just killing it?
I have a feeling I have seen these questions like really, really recently. I mean, which PTs are this one from? 45?
44. Some of the first 2 ones are from 44. I put up the main conclusion questions that people did for homework to review.
Okay, yeah. So.
But 40 is new.
Okay.
Where can I see the question number 40, Nicole?
Do you see it on the that Google Doc 40 or 16, 17, and 40?
Okay, see. Thanks.
Of course. All right, 60 more seconds. All right, 16, sum. What does sum mean on the LSAT?
More than one?
At least one, yeah. So some economists hold that unregulated markets should accompany democratic sovereignty because they let people vote with their money. What part of an argument is this? What category would you put this into?
Opinion of others.
Opinion of others. Excellent. And my other question is should a strong or mild word?
Mild.
Mild. Excellent. People with integrity say should is strong. So Clara clearly doesn't have integrity. But because if you, most of us say, well, if you should do something, that means we'll do it. But in law, should doesn't mean anything. Just because you should do something doesn't mean that you actually will. But, so we have a contouring word here, but this view ignores the crucial distinction between the private consumer and the public citizen. In the marketplace, the question is, what do I want? At the voting booth, the question is always, what do I want? Hence, supporters of political democracy can always support marketplace regulation. I think that this one was hard because I thought there was 2 sentences that possibly could be the conclusion. What were we debating between? I thought it could be, but this view.
Oh.
Yep. And then hence the supporters of political democracy can also support marketplace regulation. So which one of these is our main conclusion and why? Jasmine, do you know?
I think the last sentence is the conclusion because it's like the psychologist's opinion.
Does everybody agree with that?
What did you say, Jasmine? I didn't hear
So
it.
she said, but this view ignores the crucial distinction between the private consumer and the public citizen, or hence supporters political democracy can also support marketplace regulation. And she asked which one was the conclusion. Maybe it's the first one then.
Maybe. That's convincing. Who has an opinion on this?
I got the answer right. So
Taylor, what do you think?
Oh man, because I'm having a tough time with it too.
I love how everybody got this question correct, but people are not sure which one is the main conclusion. So this is an example too, where it's awesome that we're getting questions right, but we can still learn more if we're not sure which one is the main conclusion, right?
Oh, but isn't this view ignored? Yeah, isn't that the like the psychologist's opinion? Like that's what he's trying to convince us of.
Yeah, this is what this is what the sociologist is trying to convince us of, correct?
Okay.
And we use the subsidiary conclusion to support this idea. Does everybody agree? Because political democracy can also support marketplace regulation. Because this can happen, that's why that shows why this view ignores the crucial distinction between these two things. It's one example. I think like almost everybody got this one correct.
Wait. So Nicole, did you say like the view ignores the crucial distinction between the private consumer and the public citizen? That's the main conclusion?
Yeah.
Oh.
Even though you all got it correct.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Do you see why? Because we're saying this view, like how can we say, but they're saying, but this view ignores the crucial distinction between the private consumer and the public citizen. How, like when I read this, I'm like, why? How do we know that? And then it goes into, in the marketplace, the question is, what do I want? In the voting booth, it's what do we want? Hence, supporters of political democracy can also support marketplace regulation because there isn't this, like, because they can do both things. Supporters of political democracy can also support marketplace regulation. This supports the idea that we're ignoring this crucial distinction between private consumer and public citizen.
But the answer E says unregulated markets and democracy, right?
Yeah, E is the correct answer.
Yeah, so which is from the last sentence, right? Which says democracy and marketplace regulation. So that's the main conclusion as per the answer, right?
E is the main conclusion. However, it comes from this it's this rejection of the first sentence.
I agree. So then that is the subsidiary conclusion, and then the last sentence is the main conclusion. So your arrow should be pointing the other way, right?
Yeah, Nicole, like when I learned this question, I learned that the economist is arguing that the unregulated markets should accompany democracy, and then the author disagreeing with that, holding that people can support democracy while supporting marketplace regulation, is basically just saying that support for democracy is consistent with support for marketplace regulation, which would put the last sentence as the main conclusion.
And supporters of political democracy can also support marketplace. Aren't we? But we're rejecting the first sentence, right? Isn't rejection of the first sentence the main conclusion?
Yeah, I would agree. The rejection of the first sentence is consistent with the last sentence.
Because isn't the last sentence just disproving his point in the first sentence? Because when I first did this, I thought but this view was the main conclusion, and then I was told it was the other way around, that but this view is supporting the political democracy.
All right, I'm gonna look into this question and send it out afterwards. I still feel like it's this but that's rejecting the first sentence that makes the second sentence the same conclusion. I get what you're saying, and this is an example of, at the end of the day, does it matter, because both of these are rejecting the first sentence. So that's why so many people got it correct without differentiating between the two.
Again, and not to argue, but this might sound like that. So how does the view ignores the distinction reject the first sentence? It says there is a distinction, but we don't know what
So
the distinction.
the number one layout of an LSAT argument is to give an opinion of others, reject that, and then offer support for that rejection. This is the number one structure of an LSAT argument. To give an opinion of others, reject it, and then offer support of why we are rejecting it. Which we're saying this view ignores the crucial distinction between the private consumer and the public citizen. Let me read this again. Some economists hold that unregulated markets should accompany democratic sovereignty because they let people vote with their money. But this view that they're letting people vote with their money ignores the crucial distinction between the private consumer and the public citizen. Okay, I get what you're saying, by supporters of political democracy can also support, which that would reject the first sentence as well. Mm-hmm. Am I confusing everybody way more? Mm-hmm. Okay, I will read you this one.
I think the lesson is the main conclusion.
Yeah, I guess the more I read it, and I'm like, I read the but to reject it. Both of these sentences reject this idea, which this is saying.
Yeah, I would agree. Both sentences are supposed to refute the some economists, because.
But you're saying that this view ignores this private consumer and public by, and we use that because we're ignoring that, we're supporting.
Yeah.
Well, so I go back. The idea that supporters of political democracy can also support marketplace regulation, doesn't that support the idea that their view ignores the differentiation between the two? Because supporters of political democracy can also support marketplace regulation, doesn't that prove that they are ignoring the distinction? Because up until this point, we don't know what the distinction is.
Yeah, so if you can support two things, that doesn't mean that there's a crucial distinction, right? So let's say I support both Democrats and Republicans. That doesn't mean like there is a distinction between Democrats and Republicans.
Okay, so I read this as, this view ignores the crucial distinction between the private consumer and the public citizen because supporters of political democracy can also support marketplace regulation.
But
here, listen to this.
I was going to say, isn't the word hence kind of like based on the premise that there's a crucial distinction between the two?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, okay. Ready? Listen to this, everybody. This is actually a great learning moment, even though I got confused for a second. So you can determine between a subsidiary conclusion and a main conclusion by putting the word because in. And I'm going to look this up and maybe I'm way wrong, but so can we say supporters of political democracy can also support marketplace regulation because this view ignores the crucial distinction between the private consumer and the public citizen? That doesn't make any sense.
But doesn't it make sense if you say this view ignores the crucial distinction between the private consumer and the public citizen, therefore supporters of political democracy can also support marketplace regulation?
Yeah, but Well, no, if you, wherever you put the because, it goes main conclusion, because, premise.
But they're rejecting that view because they're supporting political democracy and they're supporting marketplace regulation, right?
Yes, but the fact that they're able to do this here, because they can do this, that supports the idea that they're ignoring the crucial distinction between the two. It's showing that this shows that there's a distinction, which supports that they're ignoring the distinction. If we don't establish there's a distinction, how can we prove that they're ignoring something? Is this making sense at all to anybody, or should we like come back to this question later?
I think it makes sense if you take out this view and replace it with the economist's argument. So I think it makes more sense as the main conclusion as, but unregulated markets accompanying democratic sovereignty because they let the people vote with their money ignores the crucial distinction between the private consumer and public citizen, I think makes sense as the main conclusion.
Because supporters of political democracy can also support the marketplace regulation. Yeah, I agree with you, Katie.
But I also think that final sentence essentially says that.
Yes, and I think
so that's why I think part because they're both saying the same thing. It's just one comes right after the point that it's refuting, and the other one is at the very end. And is a little weak.
I know we're debating something that doesn't matter right now, but no, I do. It does matter because we're getting into rule questions, and this level of detail will come up in rule questions. Even though here it happened, and I'm gonna look this up, and I'm gonna ask some other LSAT people what they think because I can see both sides of it, but I think that it's easy to use that last sentence to get to the answer, but I think truly, logically, the second sentence is the main conclusion.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter. Let's move on. Sorry. Now, like, I'm like all invested in this question. All right, let's go on to, do you guys want to do 17 or 40? Either of them?
40.
40, okay. Hopefully this one like isn't as. I should ask Derek and Cora. Derek and Cora, what did you think was the main conclusion of the last one?
From 16?
Yeah, what did you have as the main conclusion?
I had that, but this view ignores the crucial distinction between the private consumer and the public citizen. That's what I highlighted.
What did you have, Derek?
I had the last sentence as the main conclusion, but I went back and forth. The word "but" followed everything that went to the main conclusion of the last sentence, and that's what got me to E. It's see where it says, "but this view ignores the crucial distinction." Private. See, to me, that was the start of the conclusion, and then it led me to the final sentence, which got me.
You have to apply this to this to know that you're rejecting this. Okay, I'm done.
So Derek, was the first sentence to you like a sub-conclusion first? And then you went to your main conclusion? Was that like your way of thinking?
I don't know if it was a sub-conclusion to me. I thought it was more of a main conclusion, but that built onto the final sentence.
The finals making. Okay, great.
You have to be able to apply this. This last sentence is so important, but you have to know that this view ignores the crucial distinction. You have to apply, you have to put them together to be able to get to E. All right, I promise I'm done with that question now for now. I'm gonna obsess over it. Okay. So let's go. Phoebe, do you want to read 40 for us?
Chemical fertilizers not only create potential health hazards, they also destroy earthworms, which are highly beneficial to soil. For this reason alone, the use of chemical fertilizers should be avoided. The castings earthworms leave behind are much richer than the soil they ingest, thus making a garden rich in earthworms much more fertile than a garden without them.
Awesome. All right, so Alma, what did you highlight as the main conclusion?
Are you asking everybody or just me? I mean, just
did I ask Alma? Did I ask Alma?
All right, yes, I was
sorry.
having issue muting. I chose the first.
Not what answer you chose. What did you highlight as the main conclusion?
Or the for the conclusion, yeah, the first sentence.
Does everybody agree with that?
No.
No.
All right, what did you have, Kamani?
For this reason alone, the use of
Yeah, that's what I had.
avoided.
Yes. Okay, so Alma, do you see why this second sentence is our main conclusion? What category would this first sentence fit into? What part of the argument is this?
That would be just background.
Yeah, we have this background information. And whenever it says for this reason alone, we're referring to that background information. And then why should they be avoided? This next sentence offers us support for why it should be avoided. So then what did everybody get for this answer?
Pretty.
D.
Awesome. Okay. All right, so I have some rule questions. So how are people feeling on time? We could take like a 5-minute break and go for like an extra half hour to go over rule questions, or would you like to power through, or what are people thinking?
How long is the break?
A 5-minute break.
Yeah, I think I need the break.
Oh yeah, 5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, so like, or we could even do like a 10-minute. We could do a 10-minute break and then go 9 to 9:30 Eastern time and be done.
Let's do the 10-minute.
10-minute break. Is that okay with people?
Yeah.
All right.
But 9:30 is my cutoff. I got bedtime.
Okay. Same. I didn't want to rush it.
Yeah.
I'm an old lady.
Me too, Cora.
And it's recording too. And it really is recording. I'm going to pause it though, because I'm going to leave it running, even though it's going to be an awkward pause. I just don't want to forget to turn it back on. All right, I'll see you all in 10 minutes. So I just asked two other tutors what they thought, and one told me the second sentence and the other told me the last sentence for that question. And then I like said what I thought, and then they both came to the conclusion that it's ambiguous. I'm like, that's not helpful. So there's that. Jemmy, I just asked two other tutors that I really respect what they thought the main conclusion was, and one said the second sentence and the other said the last sentence. And so, and then I said, like, the one that like disagreed with me, I said like what I thought, and he's like, yeah, well, technically, but that's not what the question's asking for. He's like, it's ambiguous. You can get to the correct answer without differentiating between the two. And I was like, yeah, that's not what we're talking about. So anyways, they both came to the conclusion that the two sentences are ambiguous, which is a really crappy explanation.
Have been tricky, like if there was an answer choice which said like there's a distinction between private citizen and public citizen and answer choice E, then it would have been really tricky.
Yeah, I think but I agree with them. Like, essentially, you have to be able to apply. You have to apply them both, and which one's supporting the other? Like, it's ambiguous. He's like, it's ambiguous, and I was like, whatever. I'm like, do the because test, and he's like, it's ambiguous. I asked Troy and Brad, by the way. I won't tell you which one said which way. You can probably tell me which one. Like, told me multiple times. It's ambiguous.
Sure.
Really.
I like Brad. He's a good guy.
One agreed with me, and well, actually, no. I think we all are on the same page now. But one, like at first read, said the one sentence, and one said the other sentence.
I have the power score explanation if you want to hear it.
Oh, I looked at it.
Okay.
They say it's the last sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I also said Manhattan Prep said that. But one of which it doesn't matter. But I was like, I was like, it's easy to say the last sentence, but don't you technically have to apply the last sentence to the second sentence in LR terms? And they're like, yeah, but you don't have to do that for the question type or for the actual question. I was like, whatever. Okay. So how many people like role questions? Jasmine, you like role questions? Anybody else like Derek's like, no. A lot of people hate role questions. So
I don't know.
Part of the most intimate, someone said on the 7 stage too, I might be like fighting. I'm like going to go to war with every LSAT person out there on that last question.
Too many sub-conclusions.
Yeah, yeah. So for a lot of people hate role questions and they don't even really realize why. So I always recommend reading the stimulus first. I'm going to make sure I'm recording, sharing my screen. So we're going to read our stimulus first. So we're going to approach this just like we normally do. So everyone go ahead and read this one silently and find the conclusion in your head. All right. So we have the columnist is saying that the analysts argue that as baby boomers reach the age of 50, they will seriously begin planning for retirement. Derek's accountant, if anybody needs an accountant, by the way. So retirement is planning at 50 a good idea?
Maybe it's
This will lead them to switch from being primarily consumers to being savers. Primarily is extremely strong on the LSAT, by the way. It's the equivalent to number 1. Thus, these analyses conclude more money will flow into the stock market, resulting in continued gains in stock prices. Okay, so they're saying, hey, because the baby boomers are saving more than spending, there's going to be more money in the stock market and there's going to be more gain in the stock prices. Analysts would stand to gain if this were true, but they are being overly optimistic. As consumption decreases, so will corporate earnings. Therefore, high stock prices will not be justified, and thus boomers' money will more likely flow into investments other than stocks. What is our main conclusion here?
I underline analysts would stand to gain if this were true, but they are being overly optimistic.
Does everybody agree that but they are being overly optimistic? I mean, you're right that it's both.
Yeah.
Awesome.
No.
Oh no, here we go again, Jemmy. What are you?
So so the conclusion should be thus boomers' money would more likely flow into investments other than stocks, right? The last sentence again. I mean, I don't know. I always like last sentences.
Okay, but why? No, okay. But I think it's the same. I think we're going to disagree for the same point as last time. Why? This is actually where people, this is going to sound so arrogant, and I don't mean it that way. The easy way out was not to pick the conclusion I picked the last time. You could pick the last sentence in that one and get the question correct. Absolutely. And I can see how it's how it's both. However, really getting good at being able to decipher between main conclusions and subsidiary conclusions is so important. And here's an example why. We use this to support why they're being overly optimistic, correct? As consumption decreases, so will corporate earnings. Therefore, high stock prices will not be justified, and thus boomers' money will be more likely to flow into investments other than stocks. What is that supporting? This is supporting this idea that analysts are being overly optimistic. Do you agree, Jemmy?
Yeah.
Okay.
That definitely does.
Awesome. Okay. The other one is a really bad example of that. Like, so I can need to stop referencing it, but we're supporting this idea that they're being overly optimistic. So whenever we get to any type of role question type, the best thing that you can do is predict your answer. And the reason is that these are some of the most wordy answer choices on the LSAT. I think role questions and flaws are worded very challengingly. And if we don't predict something, it can be really difficult to find the correct answer. And we predict our answer by saying, what does the argument do broadly to get to this conclusion? So everyone take 30 seconds and predict an answer without looking at the answer choices. How do we get to this conclusion?
Nicole, would you say that the author is giving alternative causation or alternative reasons?
Like, yeah, like they're saying, like they're providing additional, that they're not like they're providing more to the story than what the original argument
Right.
the analysis give, correct?
Yeah, because that last, pretty much from optimistic down is an alternative to everything above it.
Excellent. All right, so everybody, that's a great prediction. So everybody read these answers and put your answer in the chat. Wow, everybody just killed that. It's easy when you make predictions, right? Did anybody miss this on the actual test?
I did on the actual test and then had to reread it and be like, oh no, I know what it's talking about now, because I literally saw the word, I think it was in D, the word optimistic, and I hone in too much on words, and that is what's going to kill me on the test.
Awesome. All right. Go ahead and try 6 on your own. Oh, actually, no, we're gonna do this one together as well. So 6, doctors urge people to reduce their cholesterol levels through dietary change. Okay, so that's pretty self-explanatory. They tell people, hey, reduce your cholesterol levels by changing your diet. But moderate dietary changes often do not work to lower cholesterol levels. One may need, therefore, to make more dramatic changes, such as switching to a vegetarian diet. All right. What is our conclusion here?
But moderate dietary changes often do not work to lower cholesterol levels.
I thought it was to make more dramatic changes.
I was about to go moderate because I don't like last lines anymore.
So no, this is why it's so hard and why I put these question types. I don't think a lot of people study these question types together, but this is why they go together, is because but moderate dietary changes often do not work to lower cholesterol levels, or we have one may need, therefore, to make dramatic changes. Which one is being used to support the other?
The purple one's being used to support the last one.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yes. Do you see that, Cora?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay. So whatever we have this, how I approach rule questions is you highlight your conclusion, which we have. One may need to make more dramatic changes. And then highlight what sentence it's asking you to determine. So the statement that moderate diet changes often do not work to lower cholesterol levels. Please, which of the following rules? And once again, this is where you predict it. So what relationship does this sentence have to the conclusion? So everyone take 30 seconds and think about, in your own words, what role does that green statement say in regards to our conclusion? All right, Gaia, what did you predict?
Well, I think it's sort of like supporting the fact that we need to make more dramatic changes. So I was gonna say like a premise.
Yes. Did anybody add a little more detail to their prediction?
I just said that they need to do more than just the moderate dietary. So it's something that has to be a step up from that.
Kind of qualifies the doctor's statement.
Yes. No, great job, Jemmy. So this statement is actually more in relationship to the first sentence, right? The background information, which in turn we use to come up with our own conclusion. All right, so go, and I know this is getting into the nitty-gritty and we're getting late, but this is how we are going to master these questions, is by paying attention to really what does this second sentence, yes, it's a premise, but how is the premise working? So go ahead and put your answer choice to this one in the chat. All right. Jemmy, you picked A. What did you go with A for?
I see it once I typed it. I kind of read only the first half of A and said, yeah, that's great. And then I did not read the second
I
half.
was
So, yeah, it is presented to counter the doctor's suggestions. Yeah, like what I told earlier, but it doesn't jive with the second part of it.
Yeah, it doesn't counter, we're not countering the idea that cholesterol levels could be reduced through dietary change. We're just going into more detail of what's needed. Did anybody else find any other answer choice other than the correct tempting? Awesome. All right, one more question. You guys are hanging in so strongly. Look at you guys. All right, go ahead and do this one completely on your own and put your answer in the chat.
This wasn't the homework. I remember this.
All right, awesome. You guys are killing it. All right, an artificial hormone has recently been developed that increases milk production in cows. This falls into just background information. Its development has prompted some, so at least one lawmaker to propose that milk labels should be required to provide information to consumers about what artificial substances were used in milk production. Okay, so this hormone being produced has prompted at least one lawmaker to say that, hey, milk labels should have to provide this information. This proposal should not be implemented. Just imagine trying to list every synthetic fertilizer used to grow the grass and grain the cows ate, or every fungicide used to keep the grain from spoiling. So we find our conclusion. It's that this proposal should not be implemented. And if I had to predict this, I would say it should not be implemented. And we go about that argument or getting there by showing how how impossible it would be to actually implement something like that. I think every single person got this one correct.
I didn't answer this.
Oh, sorry, Derek.
It was B. I mean, I didn't answer it, but
Were any of the other ones challenging, or was it getting to be pretty easy?
It felt easy, especially if you predicted, like what you were saying, you automatically just reading that last part, you're like, this is crazy. Because then you start going into okay, now they have to do it for everything that goes on the market. They have to list every single ingredient. And that's just going to become, I mean, it's going to be so much more money and I have to go into that.
Awesome. All right, so I kind of have a lot of homework. You can do as much as you want. It's until Saturday. And so essentially it's like 1 or 2 sets of questions and 1 section per day. If you don't get to it, it's totally fine. The most important are just PT 45 LR section 2 and PT 45 RC section. Some people, I asked for some more homework to be guided. So that's why I'm preparing more. One thing I want to point out is the must be true questions on LRBT2. You are more than welcome to drill these questions. However, if you want, on that document, you can see the difficulty. If you want to do easier questions or more difficult, that's completely up to you. I'm just providing a little bit more. Some people just wanted a little bit more guidance on what they should be doing with the questions. In particular, like the main conclusions, I broke them up into like the easier ones and harder. If you feel like you're great at main conclusions, if you have not done these main conclusion questions, 21 through 39, even if you're good at them, I highly recommend doing them. A lot of people tell me they're good at main conclusions and then they do these questions and they miss 5 to 8. Any questions on this part? And it's all on the website too. So it's all under classroom today. I have all the homework listed there. Does this look like a good amount of homework or does this sound crazy?
That's
Some
good.
people are saying yeah, like
That's a lot.
I agree.
A lot.
It's a lot.
All right, it's good.
Is doing a section a day too much? And then like 10, I don't think it's as much as it looks like.
No, I don't think so, Nicole. It's only half an hour for a section and maybe another half an hour for blind review. So an hour a day, I don't know.
And plus, like say it's a half hour for the questions. I agree. I think it's about an hour and a half of homework per day. But do know, like if you cannot do something, don't kill yourself to get this done. This can kind of be a running list of things. And like Derek, like main conclusion, I think you've done some of these. And if you don't struggle with these questions, that's okay. The drilling is just what I guess my suggestions. The sections is more like, hey, to stay on track of how you should be studying, follow that. Is that a better explanation of it?
What I also like is how you have the LSAT lab conditional logic explanation on your website now.
Conditional lab. Oh yeah,
Because he likes LSAT lab. That's why.
he does. He does. I do. I put them on there and I try to find explanations, or I try to put additional resources. But on top of it, all of that, I would recommend doing the rest of that sheet that I have. Okay, so anybody is welcome to go right now if you would like, but we can continue to do some of these role questions now too, because I know I said I would go till like 9:30, but we can keep Cora, like, yeah, people that would like to be done are tired. More
I
than
have work in the morning.
Yep.
Peace. See you guys Saturday.
See, Kara. Hey, Nicole, I had a question on the previous one, the one about the cows. So one of the answer choices say like it's pretty much impossible to, so introducing a case analogous, like answer choice D, it says it's a case analogous to one under consideration. So to show a general implementation of the proposal being argued against would be impossible. So if I remove the case analogous, would that be a good answer? Introducing a consideration to show that.
Yeah. Yes. I like, great point of detail, but we just are not introducing a case and
analogous. Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
So
it would be like showing how the proposal under considerations to show that a general implementation of the proposal being argued against would be impossible or something.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, that was a lead into my question. So would you think whatever they said there, is it absurd or impossible? Like it said, just imagine.
I guess impossible is really, really strong. Would be impossible, or would be why it would be nearly impossible.
Okay.
Or just the level of difficult, like could you really? I guess my thing is like, could you really do? I don't know if you could really do this. Is this impossible? I think it would be near impossible. I think it would be near impossible.
Well, you could give a 600-page book with every milk, so it's not really impossible.
But you would also have to know what every single cow, and then like then I'm thinking like the processing and like all the different like things like a cow goes through to like different parts of the food chain and supply. Like would that information follow it all the way through?
Yeah, it's very close to impossible. Yeah, I would say that it's almost, but is it impossible? That's what I was getting confused about.
Yes, Derek, I have it recording as is, so I'll keep recording it.
Hmm. So you would say it's almost impossible, but not impossible,
Exactly.
right?
In LSAT terms, I would not say impossible because nothing. Yes. And Gaia, you had a question. What was your question?
Yeah, and sorry, I hope I'm not taking time from these questions, just real brief. So I know that you read the stimulus first. Do you come up with like, and for those that are not, familiar with the term, I'm sorry, but do you come up with a loophole or what's wrong with the argument first, or do you do the stimulus and then the question stem, and then you come up with a pre-phrase?
So I think whenever you refer to the loophole, I believe you're referring to like what's the flaw in the argument, correct? Or what's the gap?
Yeah, because I think we spoke and I'm having a hard time. Like I was doing that and then I went back to the question stem first, and I think that's what threw me off. So I'm trying to get back at a good.
So we technically have not covered questions yet that have loopholes in them. So for these, this is just an argument proceeds by, so a rule question. We don't really care about what the loophole is. So whenever I do pre-phrase something or I do make a prediction, but I'm just predicting in my own words how the author gets to the conclusion based on it. Like I don't care what the loophole is in this question type.
Right. So, but for that, you would have to look at the question. So, like my thing is like if
Well, okay. So let me say one thing and then you can ask the question. I read the stimulus first. I understand it. And then I read the question stem.
Got it. Okay.
Does that clarify? Yes. So
Yes.
I'm okay with using the question stem to pre-phrase something, but I still focus on reading the stimulus first. I'm only focusing on understanding the stimulus. Then I introduce the question.
That makes sense. Okay. Thank you.
Yep, of course. No, that's a great question.
Nicole, I actually had a quick question on the homework. I had already set up a study schedule, so that included logical reasoning as well. But since you're going to be giving out homework, do you think we should it's best to use your homework as a guidance?
Do whatever. I would probably do whatever. At the end of the day, do whatever's best for you. But the sections I think will be good because we're going to be pulling questions from the sections. Like today, you probably saw we use questions that you've already did in the homework to review them and go over. So I think that's really helpful. And the additional classes I offer are going to be to go over those sections. However, I don't want to gear away from what you're already doing. Bye, Gaia.
Bye.
And you can also send me your study schedule and I can look over and compare it after class too. Okay. I just let you know what I think.
And I did have another question. Since you're going to be continuing going over more role questions, is this document on the chat so I can look at it after?
The questions, yes.
These ones that you're going over right now?
In that document, if you scroll down, I tried, it's the questions 7, 8, 19, 23, 24 in the rule section.
19 and 24. Okay. All right. Thank you so much.
Of course. Yeah, no, I know it's late. Not everybody can talk about the LSAT as long as I can talk about the LSAT.
All right, then have a good night.
Good night.
Nicole, I have one question.
Yes, Jasmine.
For the drilling, do you want me to lock them in my my account, the Trilla?
Yeah, that would be fabulous.
Okay, I was just wondering. Okay, well, you guys have a good night, and I'll see you guys on Saturday. Bye-bye.
Yes. All right, are y'all wanting? Okay, bye, Nikki. Or she already left. Or no, she's still here. All right, bye, Nikki. I'm going to go. Good night. All right. Any other questions, or do you guys want to do a couple more questions?
I'm open to do a couple more questions.
Same.
All right, perfect. All right, Katie, you read number 8 then.
Okay. Insurgent political parties that are profoundly dissatisfied with the dominant party's reign and justifactory ideology always produce factions whose views and aims differ as greatly from each other's as they do from the dominant party. Okay, so new political parties that are unhappy with the current party's reign and their governance and the mindset that they use to justify their policies. These smaller new political parties always have different categories of people within the party whose views differ not only from the dominant party but from each other. Yeah. Okay. Although these factions ignore their own disagreements for the sake of defeating the dominant party, their disagreements inevitably come forward upon victory. So even though they will band together to try and defeat the big bad party, once they're victorious, these differences are going to come out and they're going to start fighting within each other. Therefore, comma.
All right. So what does that mean our answer choice is going to be?
We're looking for a conclusion.
Yes, does everybody see that? And so this is not a conclusion of what we think could be accurate. It's just, and it might not even be our prediction necessarily. It's just it's just like a must be true question. What can we conclude based on this stimulus? So I'm going to go ahead and try this one and put your answers in the chat. Katie looks so serious.
I'm stuck between two.
All right, let's go over those two. What two are we between?
I'm between B and C.
All right. Was there any other ones that we were debating between other than B and C? Nope. Okay. So C, the heretofore insurgent party will not always promulgate a new ideology to justify its own policies once it is victorious. How can we conclude that? What support do you have for that, Katie?
So the support I have for that is that their disagreements inevitably come forward upon victory. So they don't have one single new ideology that they can promote because they have different factions. So they're not always able to promote a new ideology because they don't have a set one to promote because there's so many different factions. I don't love B and I don't love C, but I can't I'm trying to figure out, but C is weaker to me, which is why I'm attracted to it over B.
You kind of lost me for a second, to be honest. So I'm going to read this one again. So insurgent political parties that are profoundly dissatisfied. Okay, so this insurging political parties, so whatever this is, that are profoundly dissatisfied with the dominant party's reign and justificatory ideology always produce factions whose views and aims differ as greatly from each other's as they do from the dominant party. So these insurgent political parties are very dissatisfied with the dominant party that's reigning, and whatever that is, ideology always produces factions. So we produce these factions whose views and aims also differ greatly from each other as they do from the dominant party. So we're as different from each other as we are from the dominant party.
Mm-hmm.
although these factions ignore their own disagreements for the sake of defeating the dominant party. So I'm thinking about Bernie Sanders right now, literally. Like like there's a lot of differentiations between the Liberal Party, but he's ignoring his factions to come together, right, to beat the dominant party. Their disagreements inevitably come forward upon victory. So even though, and this is literally what's going to happen, right? You see it already with AOC and stuff, what she's saying. She's like, well, they better hold to what they said. Like, they helped them get elected. And now that Biden's elected, aren't we going to see these disagreements inevitably come forward, even though they're in victory? Do you think there's going to be disagreements between the extreme liberal side and Joe Biden?
Right.
Am I losing people, or is this helping? Do we see how that worked? That they came together to beat the dominant party, but now that we've won, these disagreements inevitably are going to come forward. Therefore, the heretofore, I don't even know what the heretofore means, but the heretofore insurgent party will not always promulgate a new ideology to justify its own policies once it is victorious. Do you know that they're not going to come up with a new ideology once it's victorious?
No, but we also don't know that they'll be able to agree and actually put forth something, which is why I liked it, because it says will not always.
Right, but just because we don't know it won't happen doesn't mean that we don't know. Just because we don't know it will happen doesn't mean that we know that it won't happen either.
Right, which is why I kept it open. Because I think I think I ultimately would have chosen B, but like C looks good to me, because what concerns me about B is that I agree with the first part of B. A victorious insurgent party must address the disagreements. That's kind of what I predicted. If it is to stay in power, I just didn't.
Because what's going to happen if they don't address their disagreements?
Well, I think a couple things could happen. I think they would not be able to put forward different ideology. They would not be able to put forward policies.
Run through this.
Like, I don't think stay in power.
Won't we run through the same process again? If they don't come to an agreement, we're going to have another insurgent party that disagrees that's going to roll up and outrule, right? Like, is this going to be a cycle?
Yeah. And in addition, Nicole, I think the first part is a negation. Like, the insurgent party needs to have a new ideology, which is in agreement with all parties, or otherwise it's gonna again do the same thing, right?
Yeah, the cycle.
Yeah, so the insurgent party has to have a new ideology, which is a mixture of all the ideologies, or otherwise there will still be differences, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the first part of C is kind of opposite of what it is supposed to do. I mean, in my opinion, I'm usually wrong.
No, you're not. You think about things really well. Well, not always. Like, I think the theme of this stimulus, Katie, is that people that are mad at the main party come together to overthrow it, even though they're different. And those that are different, if they don't come up with like their own ideology or come up with a way to overcome their disagreements, we're just going to have this other party once again, or all these people that disagree, maybe even part of people within this, leave and come over here, and we just overthrow it again.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I would have felt more comfortable with B if it was disagreements between its factions to be effective or to be successful.
Rather than it stay in power.
Yeah, it was the stay in power that was throwing me off, because I didn't necessarily think that.
Like, no, it's not. I agree. I love your attention. I love your attention to detail on this question. All right, let's do one more. All right, go ahead and do this one silently. And put your answer in the chat once you're done. Hey, look at all of you. This is a hard question.
The answers are from the previous question, Nicole.
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same answer. Right? Yeah, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay. It is unlikely that the world will ever be free of disease. That's our conclusion. As soon as I read that, I was like, well, why is the world unlikely ever to be free from disease? Most, so more than 50% of diseases, are caused by very prolific microorganisms whose response to the pressures medicine exerts on them is predictable. They quickly evolve immunities to those medicines while maintaining their power to infect and even kill humans. So we're saying, hey, we're never going to be free from disease because the medicines that we use, the diseases overcome, like they learn to adapt and we just become sick in a different way. Which of the following most accurately describes the role played by this sentence? So where you're like, oh wait, it's the conclusion. This will be easy. And then you got to the answer choices and you're like, wait, there's 3 answer choices it's a conclusion. So let's look at E. It is a conclusion that is claimed to follow from the premise that most microorganisms are immune to medicines designed to kill them. Why is that not the answer?
It combined 2 different points into one.
Yeah, and this alone isn't how we got to our conclusion, right?
Right.
So that's not E. A. It is a conclusion that is claimed to follow from the premise that microorganisms are too numerous for medicines to eliminate entirely. I like this one for a second, I'm not gonna lie. But why is it wrong, Jemmy?
Given COVID, I am almost inclined to believe it, but then again, it's the numerous. It's not in the stimulus at all.
I know.
That's a new information. But I know there are so many COVID cases, so that might be true.
Right, I know. I was like, oh yeah, that's essentially what it's saying, right? That it's too many to eliminate entirely. But it's more the cycle that is why it'll never not happen. So B, it is a conclusion for which a description of the responses of microorganisms to the medicines designed to cure the disease they cause is offered for support. Yes, we give a description of the response of microorganisms to the medicines that we're using to cure them. And we use this description of what happens to support this conclusion. What were you debating between, Kamani? Oh, you're muted.
I was between B and E.
Do you see how E is not enough?
Yeah.
Excellent. I thought this was a really hard question. How do you all, I want to turn my recording off now. Stop recording.